One of the aspects of impact entrepreneurship is offering a product or service that creates a meaningful impression in the local community or for society at large. While in Phoenix, Arizona, I was introduced to an entrepreneur that was setting out to do just that. With over 30 years of experience in corporate America and after a life-changing trip to South Africa, Evelia Davis decided to go out on her own and create a space that celebrates the best of Africa and the African diaspora. The dispersion of individuals from the continent of Africa can mostly be seen in the United States, Brazil, and the Caribbean. With so much food, music, and culture influencing the American lifestyle, Evelia's business, the Diaspora Collective, is opening its doors to welcome others who want to experience all of the contributions from Africa that are worth celebrating without having to get on a plane. Welcome to another episode of Ripple on the Road. I am Mike Shadroff. I am the founder and CEO of the Ripple Center, a 501c3 nonprofit organization who believes that capitalism is here to stay, make all the profit you want, but we believe never at the expense of people on the planet. So our mission is to mold, create, inspire, promote, educate individuals, organizations, companies that are looking to have a social and environmental impact in the world. Which brings me here today to Phoenix, Arizona,
Awesome.
Where I am with Evelia Davis, who is the founder and CEO of the Diaspora Collective, and soon to be, and pronounce it properly, the restaurant?
Latha.
Latha, which I know folks in Phoenix area are going to love.
Yeah.
So Evelia, do me a favor, start off first by telling us what is the diaspora and what is your personal journey with it that it's become part of your business model?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So the diaspora is basically a celebration of Africa and the African diaspora. So we're doing that in three ways. One is Jamai, which means community in Swahili. So creating a space for the community, the collective to come together. The other is through Asoko, which means market in Swahili, which is we've created a curated market of product made or designed by Black artisans, both from Africa and from the African diaspora. And then the last piece for us is Latha, which means flavor in Swahili, where we're creating a menu of food and drink that really celebrates all the flavors of Africa and the African diaspora. So a little taste of flavor of the continent, as well as how the folks from the continent have impacted flavor around the world.
Wow. And for those that aren't familiar with the term diaspora,
yes.
What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah. So diaspora means the dispersion of people. So obviously there are folks of African descent who live all over the world. The enslavement of Africans dispersed people all over the world. Some of the biggest populations are here in the southern U.S. and Brazil and the Caribbean. Okay. Those are the countries, or from an influence standpoint, from the diaspora that we'll focus on in the restaurant. But there's also the diaspora because of voluntary immigration to other countries as well. So the diaspora is very diverse.
Right. Now, if I'm not mistaken, right, you studied a little bit of this in college, but also had a very personal experience that kind of brought you to connect with this. Could you talk a little bit about that?
So I think there was two moments for me where my interest in understanding more about my roots really started. One, to your point, was when I was in college and I took several African American studies classes. And so that sort of spurred an interest. And then my husband and I traveled to Africa for our 20th wedding anniversary. We landed in South Africa, and one of the first things that was said to me was, "Welcome home, my sister." So that was a very impactful moment for me, because again, I knew where my ancestors were from, but just really making that connection at a deeper level was moving. That's the best way to say it. And it was life-changing in so many ways to be on the continent, be welcomed, and then experience the continent in a way where it was completely different than what we normally see on TV. The beauty, the excellence, the food, the culture, everything about it was just life-changing for me in both my perspective about the continent as well as just being there and experiencing it.
Wow. And that, the way in which you were moved, you for the most part had some really successful careers and comfortable jobs, but you said, you know what, I have a higher purpose, I have a different mission. What was that like, kind of shifting into almost a startup mode after 30 years in industry?
Right. Yeah. So I, 30 years working in corporate, but like I said, going to the continent and realizing the narrative and the story that I experienced wasn't the narrative and story that was being told. So that really sort of lit something inside of me to how can I contribute to shaping the narrative, not just about Africa, but about Mother Africa, but about her children as well.
Which I love, right? I think one of your items, you have a shirt that says, "My story starts in Africa."
Yes.
And theoretically, can't we all be wearing that shirt?
Yeah, that is, people debate that, but right, we actually traveled to the place where they say the first human began.
Wow.
Which is in Africa.
Now, I was scrolling through your website a little bit, and you speak a lot about your mission and your values, and you're using words such as authentic and safe and energetic and empowering and community. Can you speak to how you plan on bringing, or how you are bringing, all of those terms to life with what you're doing?
I think it's really important. I think particularly for African Americans or people of African descent to have a space that is safe for them. And safe and inclusive means I come in, I feel welcomed, I can be wholly who I am in that space. So that's been a really important part of, as we build out this business, that it's a place where people see themselves. And that doesn't mean people who aren't of African descent won't feel welcome, but they have to come into the space with an understanding that they have to add to that community in that way. They have to add to the safety and the inclusiveness and the celebratory nature of the space. So that's really, really important from my perspective. And then I think the authenticity, it's in everything you do, right? From are there pieces that you'll find that were made in Africa? Yes. Are the recipes, are we trying to make sure they're reflective of the culture, whether you're talking about the Caribbean or Africa or Brazil? Yes. Will it be exactly like what someone's grandma made? Probably not, because the chef's going to put his own spin on it. But making sure that we're authentic in how we present.
Now, can you speak to, I know, what a lot of people don't realize or think about is how much of American foods were influenced by African foods that were brought over here. Can you maybe speak to some of the examples or ideas of what are going to be presented?
Sure. I mean, I think I'll give a few examples of things that I think were influenced. One you have is okra, right? That's a vegetable that is from Africa that was brought to the Americas. Another one you might think of as jollof rice is a very popular dish in West Africa. You find rice, tomato-based dishes throughout the Caribbean as well as here in the U.S., right? It's maybe the sister or cousin to jambalaya, right? There's so many things like that. You have puffs in West Africa and beignets in New Orleans. So they're both versions of fried dough, but again, you don't realize the connections or the influence. The other one is greens, right? You have greens, you have callaloo in the Caribbean, right? Greens are a staple at every holiday, Thanksgiving, Christmas, on the dinner table for most African Americans. So there's so many things that are interconnected, and when you do some research, you realize that our ancestors took the foodways that they knew and used the ingredients that were available to bring them to life in a new way.
Wow. Wow. And how do you picture this also being a place of education?
Yeah, I think what'll happen is, right, with every bite, every sip, every head bob to the music, you'll learn, right? You'll be like, oh, something may feel familiar, or a server might explain those connections, right? Or as you're exploring the space and looking at the art or some edutainment we might have on the wall, you'll learn something that you didn't know. And then you'll tell somebody else and there'll be a ripple.
That's the goal, right?
Right, and that's really what you want to happen, right? Is for more and more people to understand and learn about the beauty, the excellence, the power, the perseverance, and just tell some of the stories that we should spend more time celebrating the best of who we are, and the best of what we bring to every place we go.
All right. That's great. Now, speaking of, part of what the Ripple Center does and our fellowship program does is try to empower and educate young adults. And many of the young adults that we have happen to be young adults of color, come from historically marginalized communities. And we were talking before, but I want to, speak of it now, that I have heard over time from individuals that, I'm colorblind or I'm gender blind. And, my point of view is, you shouldn't be, right? And as a Black woman who is a business owner, right, there are definitely some obstacles and challenges that you face, but also, opportunities and successes. So I was wondering if you could just speak, from your experience so you can educate and empower others.
Well, I think the thing is I am things that I can't change about myself. I'm a woman, I'm a Black woman. So I don't want someone to say that they don't see those things about me. Then you are minimalizing things that are actually a part of who I am. So it's important, I think, but what I do want you to do is not devalue me because of those things. I don't want you to say I am less than because I am a Black person or because I'm a woman. That is not okay. So that's important. There's an Audre Lorde quote that I may or may not get perfectly that says, it's not our differences that divide us, it's our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. If you are a person who can see someone wholly as they are and celebrate them, then you are making progress as a human being.
That's wonderful. Tell me what do you see? What is your dream, your feel? What are you hoping in this space?
So I've right, this part of what you do, you visualize how the space can be, how you want to see the space and how you want it to impact people and the community as a whole. So, right, I see it full of people. I see music, a variety of music from Afrobeats to jazz playing. I see people enjoying, experiencing new flavors, right? I see people learning things that they didn't know, and then eventually being ambassadors, proactive ambassadors, talking about and celebrating all of the best of what is Africa and the African diaspora. That's what I see. And again, that ripple, right? One person learns something and they tell another person. One person experiences something, they tell another person. And eventually the narrative that gets shaped is very different than the narrative today.
And another aspect of this is a retail space.
Yes.
Right? And what I love, you mentioned earlier, just even the furniture and the decor of the restaurant are going to be from Africa. And you talk about, in the retail space, I've seen, responsibly sourced. What does that mean? What does that look like?
Yeah, so as we were building out the space, again, not everything will be from the continent, but we definitely have tried to find pieces so that it's authentic in representing Africa and the diaspora. So when we are trying to source, whether you're talking about the food or the product in the retail space, we're trying to make sure that we're sourcing from other entrepreneurs who are also building amazing businesses all across the diaspora and the continent. So, we worked with a gentleman who lives in Ghana, and he handmade these. He has a team of folks who handmade these. He also helps the young gentlemen who do these. They were on the streets, so he uses this to give them skills so that they can be entrepreneurs, right? So he gives them skills so they can build their life and thrive. So in everything we do, how can you create a ripple? How can you create a ripple for all of the businesses, not just here locally in Phoenix, but around Africa and the diaspora? So that's when we say we're responsibly sourcing, it's thinking about that in that way, and not in a way that it sometimes is perceived, right? That people are, right, they're destitute and I have to save them, not in a savior way, but in a, hey, these are entrepreneurs that are providing for their family, and we can contribute to making their business successful, right? But they're entrepreneurs just like me. They don't need to be saved by me. They just need to be, I need to be a contributor to their success. And how can I do that?
Community.
Right. How can I be a part of the community and make a difference?
That's great. Any final thoughts, that you want to share with our audience?
I mean, we are obviously in the process of building out the space. We want it to be a welcoming space. We want people to get what I got when I came to the continent, a feeling of connection and that you're welcome and coming home. So we are excited to invite everybody to experience it.
Well, Evelia, I'm telling you, I am traveling around the country and talking to other amazing individuals and organizations like yourself. The first moment I get back to Phoenix, I'm coming here for
Yay!
dinner. So thank you so much. What a
Awesome.
pleasure. And
Thank you.
we're all wishing you the best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.